Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Today, I'm so glad that this movement has spread beyond the physician community, and we have members of all communities coming together, because Pakistan is something that not just the physicians care for, but every Pakistani cares for. And I'm really thankful to all of you. I'm especially thankful to Akram and to Asim and their team who have been in the forefront of this movement of the Human Development Foundation. Asim has really made my job easier by giving you some of the basic facts. But what I'm going to do is go over some of the conceptual the concepts that drive this foundation, to give you all a better understanding of what this is all about and why we think you will find this an organization that you would want to work with. I do want to make one other update, I should say, not a correction. In Asim's slide, Pakistan was ranked number 138 and India was ranked number 139 in the Human Development Rankings. The latest rankings were released about 1 week ago from the United Nations Development Program. And I'm sorry to state that Pakistan is still number 138 out of a total of 174. India has moved up to 132. We still kind of bring up the bottom 1/3 of all the countries in the world. Whereas in the early 50s, we were in the middle group, so the state of affairs hasn't changed much, although our neighbors are progressing faster. I think many of you have come here today to listen to an evening of Sufi music. So I am going to tell you about the Human Development Foundation through a story built around some of the Sufi traditions. So bear with me for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and I hope I will give you a good understanding of what we are all about. Can I have the second slide, please? There's a tradition or a story of a stream that starts high up in the mountains, and as it courses down towards its destination, it meets different kinds of terrain. It goes through mountains and hills and plateaus and plains and different kinds of soil. And whatever soil it comes across, it carves its way through or around it and continues its journey unabated till it reaches a desert. Once it gets to the desert, it starts getting absorbed into the sand, and it's not able to carve its path through it, and feels kind of lost and frustrated as to why it can't go any further. And it hears a sound that says, the wind can cross the ocean. And it says, no, but I am a stream. I carve my way through all kinds of terrain. And it says, no, but if you keep trying to carve your way in the desert, you will only turn into a marsh. And then the stream realizes that before it became a stream, it was clouds in the air that rained on the mountains that created the stream. And once it realizes that its essence is more important than its form, it transforms itself into vapor and rides the wind and crosses the desert. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of Pakistan movement is very similar to the story of this stream. The leaders of Pakistan movement took on one of the mightiest empires and some of the most influential men of this age. And through all those obstacles and against all those mountains and those hills, they were able to carve their way to our destination, which was Pakistan. And if I can go to the next slide, unfortunately, once we reached Pakistan, that beautiful dream of Pakistan, which uprooted millions of people, caused one of the largest migrations in the history of mankind, where thousands, hundreds and thousands of people lost their life. That dream has since run into the desert. And if we have to cross this desert, then we must understand what this desert consists of. And we must understand what our essence is. Only then we will be able to cross this desert. So let me share with you what we at the Human Development Foundation think the desert is, and what we think our essence is, and how we are trying to cross it, and we hope that you will join us in this journey. Let's move on to the next slide, please. And I won't go into too much details of this because Asim just told you the statistics of the millions of people in distress in the country that we left behind. But let me give you some updated statistics and share a personal story. Asim talked about the clean spring water in the mountains of Pakistan. Apna Sehat did a scientific study on the spring water in the Murray Hills and found that 90% of them were contaminated by bacteria that cause infectious diseases. So even the spring water is not clean. This is an actual study that we conducted. We collected the water in the springs in the Murray Hills, where our project is, and had it analyzed by labs in Islamabad. So there is no clean drinking water. But that is not the real tragedy. I grew up in the various cantonments. I was lucky enough that my father was relatively well off, not a rich man, but he could afford to bring me to the city. But I thank him because every summer vacation he would send me back to the village to live with my relatives. And my cousins who were farmers and shepherds, I used to go out in the hills with them, with the goats and the sheep to graze them, and we used to take them to the chopper, where the rainwater collected for drinking water. And when we would be thirsty, my cousin would take off his pagri, which was usually the cleanest part of his clothes, and he would fold it up and he would put it on this pond on the surface, and then the water that would come out on the top, which would not have the visible impurities, we would drink from that. And that's the kind of water that's available to many of the villages. I still visit that village about once a year or so, if not more, and the state of affairs has not changed much. That is the sad state of affairs that many of our families are living with. And next slide, please. And again, without going into the details, let me make a statement here that my cousin, who gave me that first lesson in public health by teaching me how to keep the impurities out of drinking water, he's still teaching the same method to his children in the same state of affairs. While I stand before you in this most powerful of the cities of the world and one of the richest places in the world, and practice medicine in this most affluent of societies. Who was smarter then when we were growing up? He was my teacher, he was smarter. But today, he still suffers the same deprivations, and I have benefited from education. The real tragedy is that we have created a society in which a few affluent families who have access to material or intellectual resources, and their children keep on doing better and better and better. And the large majority of our population that is living with these tremendous social deprivations keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the marshland that we have created in that desert. Those of us sitting in room, I dare say, are no smarter than the millions of uneducated children in Pakistan. If they were given the same facilities that you and I were given, I don't know how many Jinnahs we would have produced. I don't know how many Iqbals we could have produced. Maybe some of them would have been conscientious enough to change the destiny of the nation. That is a real tragedy. We have created a caste system, whereas our forefathers tried to run away from the caste system by creating a new land. And that is a real tragedy of Pakistan. That is the real desert that we have created that we need to get out of. And to get out of that desert, we must understand what our essence is, because only then we will be able to cross it. So let's move on to the essence of Pakistan, and let's go to the next slide, please. August 11, 1947, first session of the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah described the essence of Pakistan. He said, if we want to make this great state of Pakistan happy and prosperous, we must wholly and solely concentrate on the well-being of our people, especially of the masses and the poor. And in the same speech, he went on to say, if you will work in cooperation, forgetting the past, burying the hatchet, you are bound to succeed. Now, he did not come out with any novel idea. This is what the prophets have been teaching for centuries. And let's move on to the next slide. The greatest number of times that any particular instruction is given in the Quran, it is about the social responsibilities. Everywhere it says Aqimus Salat, it also says Wa'atuz Zakat. There are multiple places in the Quran. Probably the most frequent given instruction is for us to take social responsibility for our brothers and sisters. And that is the essence. We must concentrate wholly and solely on the well-being. Jinnah was quoting the Quran. Let's move on to the next one, which is another quote from the Quran, one of my favorite ayahs from Surah Al-Balad. The English translation is from Sayyid Qutb's work. Would that you knew what the ascent is. It is the freeing of a slave, or the feeding in a day of hunger of an orphan near of kin, or a needy man in misery. Moreover, it is to be of those who believe and counsel one another to be steadfast and enjoin mercy on one another. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence that we need to realize if we are going to cross the desert. And that is the philosophy that drives the Human Development Foundation. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Asim referred to this, and I just want to reiterate the basic principle, the core principle of the entire movement is empowerment of the communities. We are a charitable organization, but we do not consider ourselves a charity. We consider ourselves as partners in the communities that we are working in. We are creating partnerships and facilitating the change that needs to be done so that we teach the communities how to fish, not just go and give them fish and give them handouts. And that is the basic principle through which all the work that we are doing so far is being done. Since you have seen some of these statistics before, I will try to go through the rest of the statistics a little bit faster, but I think that basic principle is what we need to identify with. In order to fulfill this mission, though, there is a very essential component, and we ourselves have to put ourselves out to scrutiny by all of you. And I quote at this time from what Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq said when he took over the reins of the Muslim community after the Prophet passed away. And I'll be paraphrasing instead of the exact quotes, but essentially he said that there are many amongst you who are more worthy of this position than I am. He said that his shoulders were weak for the responsibilities that were entrusted to him. And he asked the people to help him if they see him doing something right, and to guide him and stop him if they see him doing something wrong. We, in the board of the Human Development Foundation, want to put yourselves before you in that spirit. We want you to look at us closely. Our books are all open. If anybody is interested in our financial statements, you can call our office. We'll be glad to mail them to you. Our meetings are all open. Even the board of directors meetings are open to the public. Our next board of directors meeting is planned for November 11 to 14 in Baltimore, and I would like to, at this occasion, invite all of you. Anybody is welcome to attend the meetings and participate in the meetings and listen to the deliberations of the board and see how the decisions are made for yourself. And we want you to satisfy yourself that this is the group of people that we want to work with. But what we don't want you to do is to disengage yourself and go away thinking this is somebody else's responsibility. If you find that we are not doing the right thing, find somebody else who's doing the right thing. We think we are working in the right direction. We want you to come and help us. We want you to come and participate and see for yourself and then decide for yourself. Can we move on to the next one, please? 2 years ago, in New York, 3 organizations came together: the Society for International Help, the Noor Foundation, and Apna Sehat, to launch the Human Development Foundation. Our hope was that we will create a nucleus around which other organizations will then come and become partners in this process. We have been successful, thank God. Our partnership has now increased to 6 organizations. In Pakistan, our partners include the Tamid Millat Foundation, the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, the Human Development Center that was founded by Dr. Mehboob Haq, and the National Rural Support Program, which is one of the largest organizations and probably the most skilled in developing microcredit and skills development programs all over the country. So our partnership is gradually increasing, but this was the nucleus, and I want to recognize these 3 organizations for coming together and launching this organization. Can we move on to the next slide, please? I think Asim already went over this, so I will not belabor the point of what we have achieved to date. I do want to mention that our projects are presently in 3 provinces. Our partners are active in Frontier Province, in Punjab, and in Sindh Province. We are looking for sites in Balochistan, and we are looking to expand the sites in other parts of those provinces. And if anybody is interested in taking this program to their villages, we would love to work with you. We'll move on to the next one, please. Again, I think we'll skip this one, except the numbers are updated. The number of non-formal schools is now over 200, and the number of students is now close to 10,000. Next slide, please. But what I do want to emphasize is that since the last time that you all raised funds, we have launched the first integrated model in which all 3 partners are working at the same site to bring out simultaneous improvement in the 3 sectors. And just this year alone, we have started 30 new schools in the first site. And a microcredit scheme is under development at the first site, which should be launched within the next few weeks as soon as the training of all of our staff is completed. So the money that you raised last year has already been put to use. The next slide, please. Now you might say that when there are millions of deprived people, what difference does it make to go help a few? And I refer you to what Mother Teresa once said, that we ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean. No, we don't have any big ideas. We are just doing a little bit. But the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. At least we want to make our contribution. When we meet our Maker, I am not going to be asked if Nawaz Sharif was corrupt or Benazir sold the country out or who else did what. I am going to be asked what I did, how much I fulfilled the essence. That's what I am responsible for. And I think if each one of us takes the responsibility, we can make a difference. Next slide, please. I think we can go on. Next one. Next one. Very briefly, to start a new school, believe it or not, all it costs is $1,000 upfront cost for a non-formal school in a small village which educates 30 students for an annual running cost of $1,000 a month. Recently, we were in New Orleans at the UPNA meeting, and it is amazing how much our community cares for the country that we have left behind. In 15 minutes' time, the members of UPNA raised over $100,000 for the project in barely 15 minutes. And I am hoping that the New York community will respond the same way. Don't think that you cannot make a difference. Each one of you can make a difference in many lives. And we hope that next time we meet, this child is carrying books instead of bricks. I started with a story from the Sufi tradition, and I want to finish with a story from the Sufi tradition. I think many of you have heard about Fariduddin Attar. He was a Sufi master from the 9th or 10th century from Central Asia who influenced people like Rumi, I'm sure, who's much more popular in this society. And one of the most famous works of Attar is a book that has now also been translated in English and is being taught at many US universities in the classes on mysticism. Its English name is The Conference of the Birds, or The Parliament of the Birds. And this is a story of birds in a jungle who want to find out who their king is. And along comes the hoopoe bird, or hudhud as it is referred to in the Quran, the traditional bird of wisdom, and he tells them, I know who your king, who our king is. He lives in the mountains of Kaf. And the birds were very interested in seeing this king, but the hoopoe bird told them that the journey is very difficult, and you have to cross 5 deserts and 2 valleys before you can make it to see the king. He also described the beauty of the king and the palace and the experience that comes with it that made it even more attractive. And he described the difficulties of crossing the valleys, the valley of quest as the first valley, the valley of love, the valley of gnosis, the valley of annihilation. And as he told the story and he started to prepare the birds for this arduous journey, different birds started to come back with different reasons why they could not go with them. One bird said, in the peacock, he said, I am a bird of the heaven. I have seen the heaven. I don't need to see the king. The nightingale said that I am in love with my rose. all I need is my rose. I'm just going to sing to my rose. I don't need to see the king. The goose said, I can't go too far away from the water. I have to stay close to it. And so on. But to each one, the hoopoe bird had some answers, and he prepared them. And they finally leave on this difficult journey to see the king. On the way, they go through difficulties. Some people like the beautiful valleys and settle down there. Others are killed by wild animals. Some die otherwise. And ultimately, about 30 birds reach the palace, and they knock on the door, and the guard comes, and initially he does not let them in. But since these birds had been hardened by this difficult journey, they ultimately negotiate their way into the palace. And they walk in and they look around, and they don't see anything but mirrors and themselves. And they start thinking, we have been tricked. And the hoopoe bird flies in, and he says, you are the kings. You have found the king. Ladies and gentlemen, we are starting on this journey to find the king. And we hope that many of you will be with us when we reach there. Thank you very much.